Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Welcome back everyone to a brand new course, the Fiqh of Hadith rulings. Inshallah, in today's first lecture, I will introduce what this topic is. This is a new discipline, a new science, a new ilm. And Alhamdulillah, you will have had some sense of this the way I teach, because when I teach fiqh, furu'a that is, I always like to begin the class after reading the matan. I always like to read from the book of adillah. So this is a deep dive into that. I just mentioned the adillah, I don't really talk about them, but this is going to be a deep dive into how we understand the hadith from the point of view of how we apply it to our fiqh. So this is going to be, part of it is fiqh, part of it is usul al-fiqh, and part of it is dirayatul hadith, the science of knowing the hadith. So in today's lecture, being the inaugural lecture, I'll introduce the topic for you, inshallah. And then following that, we will read the first set of hadith in the book that will cover issues of tahara. So we're going to talk about water, and then we're going to talk about when a dog or a pig or derivative of them licks or laps, as the word is in English, into a vessel and or other type of item. And then we're going to talk about things that come from the water, whether they're pure or they're not pure. And I think there's one more thing. Let me just look at my book really quickly. And the last thing is hadith on... and then we're going to talk about tanning. The hadith on tanning. So basically the structure of the class is... I have the book is unfortunately not translated in English, so what we're going to do is I'm going to read for you the hadith the way I read the text. So the hadith is going to be the matan portion, and then we're going to unpack it with a summary of what Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari has to say about that for the purposes of the Shafi'i madhab. Of course, this is going to be the adillah that we use in the Shafi'i madhab. And because this is the first class, also as I'm recording this, I hope that what I just said is going to work. We might have to modify because there's quite a bit of pages to do the ibadat. That's another thing, is we're going to only talk about the acts of worship in this class. So those are the main topics we're going to talk about, and I'll see you back for the first lecture, inshallah. Alright, so inshallah the book that we have with us is a book by none other than Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari. Of course, in the Shafi'i madhab, when we say Shaykh al-Islam, we mean Shaykh al-Islam Zakaria al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu, who is one of my absolute favorite ulama for a whole host of reasons. He was, for lack of the right word, he was a Renaissance man. He wrote about almost every single subject that is known. And just trying to flip through, I wanted to get you his death date. I forgot to, rahimahullah. Yeah, he died in the year 926. And he was primarily in the Shafi'i madhab, he's known as Shaykh al-Islam. Okay, so when we say Shaykh al-Islam in the Shafi'i madhab, that's what we mean. When we talked about the introduction to the Shafi'i madhab class in the first semester, hopefully you'll remember, I think it was towards the end of the course, if I'm not mistaken, we talked about what some of the alqab, what some of the titles mean. So for the Shafi'i, Shaykh al-Islam is Zakaria al-Ansari. And he has a position in the latter madhab. So we look to Shaykh al-Islam rahimahullah radiallahu anhu for certain issues when we can't reconcile between Nawawi al-Rafi'i or al-Haythami and al-Ramli. He is one of the people of tahqiq in the later madhab. But as I said, he was also a Sufi. So he wrote about, I had the pleasure of reading some of his commentary on Khamrat al-Hayd, which is a very famous Sufi text. He has a commentary on Risala al-Qushariya, which I was very fortunate to pick up in a small bookshop in Fez when I was very younger. It's a very unique, it's a slim volume, but it's special to me. And he's one of these people, he keeps coming up. And alhamdulillah, I can't remember the publishing house right now off the top of my head, but there is a modern Arabic publishing house that is doing a lot of work in reviving the printing of many of his books are still in manuscript form. He has commentaries on mantiq, he has commentaries on ilm al-kalam, He's a lughawi, he has things in lugha. He's also very famous for issuing a fatwa for the permissibility of coffee, which is very interesting, kind of latifa, a lot of interesting story. I'll just narrate it to you, which is the word qahwa in the Arabic language means khamr. So qahwa is one of the words for al-khamr. So coffee, when it was first discovered by Umar al-Shadili radiallahu anhu in Yemen, it was called qahwatul mu'min, the wine of the believer. But that's like a clunky name. So over time, when you have a long name like that, the second half of the name gets dropped. So it's just qahwa, qahwa, qahwa. So this is at a time when people didn't know what qahwa was. So when you ask a mufti, ma hukm al-qahwa, sharb al-qahwa, what's the ruling of drinking wine? Astaghfirullah, that's haram. So, but everyone's like, but this is amazing, this and that. So Shaykh al-Islam is like, okay, let's just do an experiment. Let me get this thing that's called qahwa, because it certainly doesn't look like wine, it doesn't smell like wine. First of all, it's hot, etc. And after Fajr prayer, he brought all of his students and he gave them a little bit of this qahwa, and he found that it had the opposite effect of why they were awake, they were alert, they were excited. So he's like, oh, mashallah, this is a great thing. This is one of the stories, apocryphal or not, but this is one of the stories of the great Shaykh al-Islam Zakir al-Ansari. Just to show you the magnitude of his scholarly and spiritual caliber is that he is buried next to Imam al-Shafi'i radiallahu anhu. So here in Cairo, when you go to visit Imam al-Shafi'i, as you walk into the mausoleum, on the right hand side is Shaykh al-Islam. You give salam to him first, and then you go to visit the great Imam, our Imam al-Shafi'i radiallahu anhu. Shaykh al-Islam is also important for us in the university here because we also teach his Lubb al-Usul, in Usul al-Fiqh. As a matter of fact, other than the waraqat, all of the Usul classes are basically me commenting on that book, which alhamdulillah I have translated as well. So I have this kind of personal affinity. Enough about me and Shaykh al-Islam. This subject matter is a subject matter that is well written about. Every madhab will have its own system of looking at the ahadith, al-ahkam. So as we know, we have about 100 to 120,000 hadith. About 2,000 of those hadith, in all of the hadith, about 2,000 of the hadith are hadith al-ahkam. Just like in the Quran, we have ayat al-ahkam, the verses that deal with the rulings. So a minority, about 3% of the primary sources deal with the Sharia. So the famous book for us is Bulugh al-Maram by Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani radiallahu anhu. And it has many, many commentaries, including his own commentary. So what Shaykh al-Islam did, Shaykh Ibn Hajar radiallahu anhu was his Shaykh. So he took that Bulugh al-Maram and he slimmed it down. So we have a slimmer volume, but just to show you it's not that slim. I mean, it's quite a thick book. But this is all of fiqh. We're only going to do ibadat in this class. And I think the muhaqqiq of this current book, he says Shaykh al-Islam only added 10 hadith to Bulugh al-Maram. But other than that, it's basically a summary of that. So that's why this is a good book, because when you want to get to the big guns, as I usually like to call them, the mutawalat, you're going to go to Bulugh al-Maram, and there's no less than half a dozen reliable commentaries on that, including Ibn Daqiq al-Eid, and which has just come out in a very beautiful print and things like that. So Shaykh al-Islam summarized it, and then as is his habit, he provided his own commentary on it. As I said in the introductory clip, this book is not translated, so what I'm going to do is it's going to be me. I'll do my best. I ask Allah Ta'ala to give me tawfiq to be able to do this effectively. We'll just jump right in. So he begins with, it's split up in the chapters of the fiqh. So we begin with the tahara, and he begins with water. So let me read for you the first hadith. قال رضي الله عنه ونفعنا بعلومه في الدارين آمين. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم في البحر هو طهور ماؤه الحل ميته. So the Prophet ﷺ is recorded as Abi Huraira as saying regarding the ocean that its water is pure, and the dead creatures that come from the water are also pure. This is narrated by Dawood, Tirmidhi, and others. Now, let us go back and let me just show you how a subject like this works. So we want to stop at the Sahaba as we read them. So Abu Huraira radiallahu anhu, he is Abu Huraira, the famous hadith. He became Muslim in the year of Khaybar, and he was lazim an-Nabi sallallahu. He was a close confidant of the Prophet alayhi. He's also from Ahl Sufa, and he died in the year 57. The amount of hadith that he's narrated is 5,374. 5,374, which is an enormous amount of hadith. Most Sahaba don't narrate single digit hadith. So he was one of the great Sahabi to narrate the hadith. Now, when you want to know how many hadith a particular Sahaba narrated, you're going to go to the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, because the Musnad of Imam, these are called the Masanid. So each person, the Musnad of Abu Hurairah are all of the hadith that Abu Hurairah narrates. The Musnad of Sayyida Aisha alayhi salam, all the hadith that Sayyida Aisha narrates. So that's where you kind of find those numbers. Okay, now this hadith is that a man came to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and he asked the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he said, we ride the ocean on vessels which was unknown for the Arabs. They weren't really like common. One famous Sahabi that was a sailor was Tamim ad-Dari, the famous Palestinian Christian who converted. He's famous because he narrates the hadith of a Jassasa, which is in Muslim, about the Dajjal. Anyway, so this Sahabi came radiallahu anhu to the Prophet ﷺ and say, we ride the oceans and there's a lot of, we have a little water. So like the water that we have is for drinking. Do we make wudu from that? To which the Prophet ﷺ answered the hadith, the ocean is pure, its water is pure, and its dead creatures are also pure to eat. So Shaykh al-Islam highlights that in the style of answering the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ also indicates to the man, he gives him another piece of information that he might need. So it's very common that an alim or a sheikh, when they're asked the question, they will answer the direct question and add some of the details that the person needs. Okay, the second hadith is on the authority on Abi Sa'id al-Khudri رضي الله عنه عن أبيه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم إن الماء طهور لا ينجسه شيء. So this is a hadith by Abi Sa'id. He says the Prophet ﷺ said, water is pure, nothing renders it ritually impure. Abi Sa'id al-Khudri, Khudrat ibn Auf ibn al-Harith ibn al-Khazraj al-Ansari al-Madani, and he is well known. His name Khudari bit-Tasghir, with the diminutive. This was given to him on the day of the Battle of Uhud. He fought many battles, and the hadith he narrated on the Prophet ﷺ is 1,170. This hadith that we just narrated is found in the collection of it's Sahih. It's in Tirmidhi, and Imam Ahmad says that it's Sahih, and in Nawawi in the Majmu' says that it's part of a hadith that a man was asked the Prophet ﷺ, should we make wudu from a certain well? That hadith is going to come in a little bit. And then the Prophet ﷺ answered to that, yes, because water is pure, nothing renders it impure. Let me pick up the rest of the discussion in the next clip, inshallah. Okay, so we're still on the second hadith. I realize I'm taking up too much time, so I'll try to speed it up a little bit. This hadith, that water is pure, nothing renders it impure. And this is, Imam al-Nawawi says in the Majmu' is part of a larger hadith that a man came to the Prophet ﷺ to say that can we make wudu from the well min bi'r, Allahumma salli, bi'r buda'a. The bi'r of bi'r, the word bi'r is a feminine word, so bi'r buda'a, it's the name of the well. And that well was known because people inadvertently, either non-believers or inadvertently, sorry to be so explicit, but the rags that women would use to block their menses was thrown in there, and other types of things were thrown in there. And they asked, can we make wudu from that water? To which the Prophet ﷺ answered this hadith, إِنَّ الْمَاءَ طَهُورٌ, water is pure and purifying, لَا يُنَجَّسُهُ شَيْءٍ, nothing renders it impure. Now, of course, this hadith, as it stands, would make it seem that any amount of water. Of course, we know that there's the issue of qullatayn and less than qullatayn. So this hadith establishes the purifying power of water. That's the kind of phraseology I use in the fiqh class. And obviously it would assume that the water is unchanged. Okay, so the fiqh that we take from it is that unchanged water is pure and purifying. If the water is changed, whether it's a lot or a little, we know that it renders it impure. So that's sort of how you reconcile. So you kind of see this is what this class is about. It's about understanding the fiqh of what the hadith means. Okay, hadith number 3. On Abi Abdul Rahman رضي الله عنهما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم إذا بلغ الماء قلتين لم يحمل الخبث. The Prophet ﷺ said, as narrated by the son of Umar, Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, that water, when it reaches qullatayn, that magic number, it does not carry any impurity. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhu he made hijrah with his father, Sayyidina Umar. He was the first battle he had was the Battle of Khandaq. He is one of those that used to narrate frequently from the Prophet ﷺ. So the number of hadith he narrated was 1,630, and he died radiallahu anhu in the year 64. He's considered one of the fuqaha of the Sahaba, and he's called one of the Abadila. So we refer to the Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Abbas, etc. One of the Abadila, and he was known for seeking out the physical locations around Medina where the Prophet ﷺ used to do things and marking them. And some of the people that were in charge, I heard the second hand, but some from a reliable one of my teachers, people that were conducting reconstruction of the mosque in Medina, when they would remove some of the newer floor, they would found in the original flooring tar marks, and those were the tar marks that Abdullah bin Umar radiallahu anhu left to mark these different places where the Prophet ﷺ would pray here or pray there, etc. This particular hadith that's in front of us, it's narrated by Ibn Hibban and others. Ibn Majah has it. It's considered sahih. That when the water reaches qullatayn, it's not going to carry any najasa, any ritual impurity, because it's such a large amount of water that it purifies that which is placed inside it. Of course, if the qullatayn changes in taste, color, smell, then texture, like an oil spills in it and it's like all oil, well, it's not water anymore. That's basically the idea. So now this hadith and the previous hadith, when you put them together, just remember this gesture that I'm making. You got to, like a puzzle, you got to put these hadith together to understand the fiqh from it. حديث number 4 عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم لا يغتسل أحدكم في الماء الدائم وهو جنب فقيل كيف يا أبو هريرة قال يتناوله تناولا. This is narrated by Muslim. So Abu Hurairah narrates the hadith that the Prophet ﷺ said, do not make ghusl in al-ma' ad-da'im, meaning stagnant water. Now this is the ruling of this for us is that it's makruh. So you don't make ghusl in stagnant water, so that you don't make it, if you carry any ritual impurity, that you don't make it ritually impure, because stagnant water is not flowing, so that ritual impurity is kind of will be there. And this is makruh if it's less than qullatayn. If it's a huge amount of stagnant water, then that karahiyah doesn't go. So you see now, this is not fiqh like the fiqh book, but these are the hadith, and what fiqh do we take from the hadith? So now you can in your mind put this back plug it into the sections of fiqh that we took. Number 5. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم إذا وقع الذباب في شراب أحدكم فليغمسه ثم لينزحه فإن في أحد جناحيه داء وفي الآخر شفاء. رواه البخاري وأبو داود. So the Prophet ﷺ said, as recorded by Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, that if a fly falls into one of your drinks, water, milk, whatever, then dunk it in. So the fly lands in it, don't remove it, dunk it in, and then remove it, because in one of its wings is a disease or a sickness. Let's say one of its wings is a sickness, and in the other wing is its cure. So based on this, we take from the fiqh of it that other type of insects that do not have flowing blood, واحتج به أئمتنا على أن ميتة ما لا نفس له سائلة. So the fuqaha of our madhab say that any insect that does not have ad-dam yasil, does not have flowing blood. So the fiqh of it is that if it doesn't have flowing blood inside it, then we dunk it. So any similar type of insect that doesn't have flowing blood, I'm not an insectologist or whatever the right word is, so I'm not going to act like I know all of the different derivatives, but you dunk it. Now, because as the Prophet ﷺ said, there is a cure in it. It has something to do with the enzymes, or something about the wings. I remember reading some scientific thing, but unfortunately, I can't, like a bee or something like that, the same thing would happen. I can't remember. However, there is a latifa here, which is that the Sharia takes into consideration the plight of the poor. So poor people that are in the desert area, Bedouins, rural areas, farmers, etc., they got insects all over the place. They got dung, animals, livestock, insects all over the place. So the fact is, of course, we're city folk. I'm a city folk, so for me, I'm not used to that. If I find a fly in the room, I go crazy. I can't record if I don't have a fly in the room. But for the vast majority of the human population, even till today, it's not like that. So this shows you the rahmah that the Sharia has, that it doesn't render these type of things to make najis the food, because it's unavoidable. Now, of course, if a larger animal or a rodent falls and dies into something, that renders it impure. Hadith number 6. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم طهور إناء أحدكم إذا ولغ فيه الكلب أن يغسله 7 مرات أولاهن بالتراب رواه مسلم وغيره. Abu Hurairah narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, purify your vessels. If a dog licks from it 7 times, the first time with turab, with earth. Now, Daraqutni, which is an important variant of this hadith, he narrates إحداهن بالبطحاء, one of the 7 times with turab. So the fiqh that we take from it is that it doesn't have to be the last time or the first time or the third, because there are different narrations. We take the narration of Daraqutni, even though it's less in strength than this narration, and we said that shows us that any of the times, it just matters that one of the 7 has earth with it. Not 7 with water and then the 8th is earth, because there's another hadith that has that wording, but it's one of the 7, the water is mixed with the earth, the same type of earth that you use for tayammum. And the dog here means the dog, the pig, or that which comes from either of them, or one of them, or either of them, as we took in the fiqh. Aniya is the drinking vessel or a plate. Just trying to find where the commentary was. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Yeah, so I'll get to the end in a second. The licking of the dog means that they extend the tongue and they lick up the water, meaning any wet part of the dog or the pig, or etc. So their feces, sorry to be explicit, their urine, any type of, because for us the dog and the pig are completely, every aspect of it is done. There's no tahir part of it. So any wet part of the dog that mixes with the vessel needs to be purified in the same way. Let me pick up the discussion in the next clip, inshallah. I just don't want to rush it. So in the last clip, we're talking about the dog drinking from the vessel. Any wet part of the dog. So it's saliva, it's feces, it's urine, it's blood. Now, what if the animal is wet? Wetness transfers the najasa. If the animal is dry, like my hands are dry now, so this, like say this was the dog and this was the vessel. So this is dry and this is dry, and then they touch. That's not what the hadith is talking about. But if the animal is wet and I got water in my cup and then they touch, even if it's the body of the animal, the wet transfers to the wet, or the wet transfers to the dry. So wet causes the najasa to transfer. So that would also cause us to follow this hadith, to wash it 7 times, 1 time with the earth. Hadith number 7. Wow, we got to 7 already. وعن أبي حمزة رضي الله عنه قال جاء أعرابي فبال في طائفة المسجد فزجره الناس فنهاهم النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم فلما قضى بوله. أمر النبي, sorry, I keep pausing because it's interlinear, the commentary. فلما قضى بوله أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بذنوب من ماء فأهرق عليه رواه الشيخان. So this is in Bukhari and Muslim, that Abi Hamza is the khadim of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, Malik ibn al-Nadr ibn Damnam al-Ansari al-Khazraji. He was the khadim of the Prophet ﷺ after the hijrah. He was in Badr, in the Battle of Badr, and all of the following battles. He narrated 2,286 hadith. The Prophet ﷺ made dua for him that Allah give him a lot of wealth, a lot of children, and give him a long life. He lived in Basra, and he was the last of the Sahaba to die in Basra. He died in the year 93, over the year 100 years of age, radiallahu anhu. Mawraq, one of the Salaf, he said when he died, radiallahu anhu, ذهب اليوم نصف العلم, that when he died, half of knowledge was lost, radiallahu anhu. Just to show you the servant of the Prophet, look at his stature of knowledge and stature amongst the ummah. So he's narrating the scene that a Bedouin man came into the mosque and peed, and the people were going to attack him, yell at him. Obviously, as anyone, I mean, that's what I would do if I saw someone peeing in the mosque. You'd jump up. But the Prophet ﷺ said, no, let him finish. And then when he was finished, he ordered a bucket of water and he poured it over it. Narrated by Bukhari and Muslim. Imam Shafi'i radiallahu anhu narrates this hadith with an extension that the Prophet ﷺ said, "Allimu aw yassiru wa la tu'assiru." So the Prophet ﷺ said, teach him or be easy with him and don't be difficult. So that's an addition in the narration of Imam Shafi'i. So basically, many things from this hadith. Number one is that the water over the urine purifies the urine, and we know that from our fiqh. But here the Prophet ﷺ let him finish because it's already, the deed is already done. Shaykh al-Islam says the urine is already on the floor. So there's no point of stopping him, because more urine on the urine is not going to change the fact. And you might harm the man by letting him cut. I mean, if you ever had to stop urinating in the middle, it's like you can get sick that way. Or if you hold in your urine or your feces. I mean, sorry to be explicit, but it's like a rahmah that we can, defecate and urinate. Imagine if you can't. So anyway, this shows you the inner state of the Prophet ﷺ vis-a-vis these things. أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بذنوب. The dhanub, Imam Shafi'i says, is a massive bucket. And some say that it's not called a dhanub unless it's a bucket that's held together by like some kind of rope. So the idea is it's large. It's not like I don't have a cup next to me. It's not like a cup of water, but that's why I translated it as the bucket of water. And then you pour the water over it. And then likewise for any type of najasa that comes from the human being. Okay. Al-Aniya. This is why I was stuttering before about the Aniya. Al-Aniya is the plural of ina. So this hadith is number 8. عن أبي عبد الله حذيفة ابن اليماني رضي الله عنهما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تشربوا في آنية الذهب والفضة ولا تأكلوا في صحافهما فإنها لهم في الدنيا ولكم في الآخرة رواه مسلم وغيره. So this is Hudhayfa radiallahu anhu, the head of the Prophet's intelligence services. He is the great Sahabi, Abasi. He was the holder of the secret of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. His father was also a Sahabi. He fought in the battle of Badr and Uhud, and his father died in the battle of Uhud, Shaheed radiallahu anhu. And he also fought all the way up into the battle of Nahawand. That would be with Imam Ali alayhi salam. And then Umar made him a governor of Medina. He died in Medina in the year 36. No, Afwan. Nahawand was before. He died in the year 36 after the death, the assassination of Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu by 40 days. He has 100 hadith that he narrated. Okay, Abu Hudhayfa, most of the hadith by Hudhayfa are the hadith of the Dajjal and the fitan and the future stuff that's going to come. This hadith, the Prophet ﷺ do not drink in plates of gold and silver, and do not eat sihafiha. Sihaf is like a plate. So the aniya, لا تشربوا في آنية. Do not drink in the vessels or bowls of gold and silver, and do not eat from the plates of gold and silver. So here the Prophet ﷺ is explicit that they're both things. So for us in the Shafi'i madhab, obviously we can't eat or drink from any utensils, tools, cups, bowls, silverware, etc. Silverware, it's called silverware. Because based on this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said it's for the disbelievers in the dunya and it's for us in the akhirah. This doesn't mean that it's permissible for the believers in the dunya, because according to the Sahih position with the Ash'ari school is that the disbelievers are also called with the particulars of the hadith. We talked about that even when we talked about the waraqat. But it means that they drink, that's what they use in the dunya, but we're not going to use it in the dunya, it's for us in the akhirah. Now this hadith is universal for men and for women. So this is not just for men or just for women, because when the Prophet ﷺ or Shaykh al-Islam says, when the damir, when we use the male form, usually this encompasses male and females in these type of directions. Again, so this is the fiqh that we take from it. And then the last hadith for today, number 9, عن أبي عباس عبد الله ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم إذا دبغ الإيهاب فقد طهر. This is narrated by Muslim and others. So Ibn Abbas is the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ, Hibr al-Ummah he's also called al-Bahr, because of all of his knowledge. The Prophet ﷺ made dua for him. He did tahniq, he put the date in the newborn's mouth for him, radiallahu anhu. He was one of the most knowledgeable of the Sahaba. So he is Abi al-Abbas, Abdullah ibn Abbas. So Abi al-Abbas is his kunya. He is Abdullah, the son of Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet alayhi salam, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He narrated 1,660 hadith. He is one of the Abadila. So Abdullah bin Umar, Abdullah bin Abbas. He died in Ta'if radiallahu anhu in the year 68 at the age of 65. إذا دبغ الإيهاب. Al-ihab are skins of animals that have not been tanned. So if the untanned skins are tanned, then they become permissible to use. So narrated by Muslim. Now this means for the animal that's not been slaughtered. The animal that's slaughtered, its skin is rendered tahir. So the maita, the carrion, as long as the animal is not the dog and the pig, or one of them, or a derivative of either of them, or both of them, as we know that's completely, dibagha will not purify that. So the dibagha, Shaykh al-Islam says, ihala la izala. This is an important statement. Why is the dibagha, the tanning, not permissible for the dog and pig skin? Because dibagha is not about removing filth. It's about transforming something from being najis, ritually impure, to something to being pure. There is no process for that for the dog and the pig. So the dibagha is not just about cleaning. Obviously you have to clean it or else it smells bad, but that's not really what the sharia is about. The sharia is about transforming it from something that's ritually impure to ritually pure, which is a sharia. It's a ta'abbudi thing. It's a thing that we do out of worship. Okay, that's what I wanted to discuss with you today. This is how the class will go, more or less. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. So, alhamdulillah, in today's first class, and I hope I'll adjust the speed, okay? I realize that maybe I was rushing in some of them. I introduced the topic to you, that this is the topic of the fiqh of hadith rulings, which we are going to look at the subset of hadith that we specifically use to establish the main rulings in the Shafi'i madhab. The particular book that we have, the book of Shaykh al-Islam Zakir al-Ansari, which is Al-A'lam fi Ahadith al-Ahkam, or Fath al-A'lam, his commentary on his summary of Bulugh al-Maram of Shaykh Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani radiyallahu anhu, which was Shaykh al-Islam's Shaykh, his direct Shaykh, one of his direct shuyukh. So we took the first 9 hadith, which are largely to talk about water, which talks about the ocean and foods from the ocean, which talks about if an insect flies in an ocean. We talked about not making ghusl in the stagnant water. Let's see, what else did we talk about? We also talked about the that when the water becomes qullatayn, it doesn't hold any najasa. We talked about the dog and the pig licking in the bowl, vessel, whatever, having to wash it 7 times, one of those with earth. Then we talked about the man who came and urinated in the mosque, and how the najasa of the human being is also cleaned through water. Then we got into the aniyah. We talked about the aniyah and the sihaf. We talked about the drinking bowls and vessels, cups and plates of gold and silver, not permissible for us. And then we talked about the tanning at the very end. One of the features of those are the main hadith, the 9 hadith that we took. Now, one of the main features of the class is also that we want to, because this is also a class of diraya of hadith, of understanding the hadith. When we come to a new Sahaba, I will pop down to the Hashiyah and I will give you a short little synopsis of the Sahaba. So we learned about Abu Huraira, we learned about Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, we learned about Abdullah ibn Umar, we learned about Abdullah ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu, Hudhayfa ibn al-Yamani. I think those were the main ones, radiallahu anhum ajma'in. Because we want to know these people, know a little bit about them and why they're important. That's also part of this is learning about the people. So it's not about looking at every permutation of fiqh. That's what we do in fiqh. Here we're more about sticking to the hadith and what we get from the hadith. That's it for this class, and I'll see you back for the next one, inshallah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.